about limits, man. Okay, calm down.
And what do you think is so threatening to the people who removed it, both Ron DeSantis and the AP College Board?
Could I just say one sentence? Sure. Because a full-fledged, credible course in African American studies is a great assault on white supremacy.
Exactly.
So we can't have that happen.
Exactly. And this is why this goes back to the fact that every single one of those categories is true. Barbara and her cohort, her generation made it possible, basically invented those fields. Every single one. They got rid of Black feminist literary theory, they got rid of queer studies. All these things come down to that work. But where did that work come from? That work came out of movements. Because let's face it, the idea of Black studies, like the idea of women's studies, wasn't simply to diversify the curriculum or try to be more inclusive. It was about transforming our society, and that is the threat. That is the threat, because if you take a class in Black studies, it's truly a class in Black studies that is interdisciplinary, that deals with sort of, as the Combahee River Collective says, interlocking oppressions, then what you're doing is you're critiquing and revealing the very structures that made the United States not exceptional, right? That made the United States what it is. And we're trying to change this country, So, I mean, look, I have lots of problems with Ron DeSantis, and I know this is all a ploy, but there's some truth in the fact that this work is a threat to the status quo. Yes. But keep in mind that when we say a threat, I just want to be clear to your listeners, because I'm not sure always who listens to your show. The threat is not to white people.
Yeah, no,
that's the most ignorant thing I've ever heard. I mean, people say this. The threat is to the status quo, to capital. It is to white supremacy, to patriarchy, to a system that actually extracts wealth from our labor and continues to maintain this hierarchy. So I think that's really, really important to recognize. See?
How do these courses threaten the status quo, as you're both arguing?
The way I think it's kind of obvious in some ways, but one of the ways that it does that is because it has young people start questioning. They look at what's around them. They can see what's happening because they're deeply affected by the great wealth inequality, by their student debt, by the fact that they're not going to do any better than their parents or maybe even their grandparents did, unlike that American dream that's supposedly been chugging along ever since, the founding fathers. So they can see what's happening. But then in the kinds of courses that are being expunged, they find out like the why of it. And then they begin to think about different possibilities and different alternatives. They figure out, well, maybe those people who live in another neighborhood who I never knew until I got to a college campus, maybe they're not my problem. Maybe it's like something called the system that's my problem, that is lodged against us. Like this country has never wanted people to be critical thinkers. They've never wanted that to be the case. And those few of us who escaped and became critical thinkers, often we end up in prison or some other places, or either like in exile in some other country. We're not popular, we're just not popular. And but we persist. There's that Black radical tradition that Robin writes about so brilliantly. It's still in existence, and the children, they're being born every day who are going to take that on.